What's going on, guys? I'm Masanak, and welcome back to One More Minute, the show where each week I get 1 minute to talk about, and today's video is 62 minutes long. And we are back-to-back weeks, and man, I've had a time trying to figure out what to talk about next. I'm trying not to repeat over stuff. I'm trying not to make up stories. I'm trying to give you guys fun and fresh content, and that's what I hope today's topics will be all about. So I do plan on talking about the ending of Stranger Things. Now, no spoilers. There's gonna be no spoilers, and put no spoilers in the comments. I don't want anybody getting spoiled about anything. But I do plan on talking about the ending, as I have a different experience enjoying this content as I went through and over the past. And the reason why I wasn't watching it the night it came out, the season finale or series finale, was that I was in the middle of binging every single episode of Stranger Things. I was gonna say nonstop. I mean, I stopped and did other things over the course of the last month, but I didn't skip over stuff. It was just pure Stranger Things, and it made the experience, I think, for me, different from other people and how they experience the ending or the series finale of Stranger Things. So you might want to stick around to see my opinion about that. But however, I do want to start off with a story. I want to talk about my entire experience from beginning to end at Anime Frontier, as it was the first ever convention, minus RTX for Rooster Teeth, where I got to go out of Houston and enjoy a convention. And I had a ridiculous amount of fun and a lot of interesting experiences that I do hope to convey in this hour and 2 minute long video. So if you haven't already, please make sure to like, start with us up to 1 more minute, and let's jump in straight to the stories. So Anime Frontier, if you don't know already, Anime Frontier is a Dallas convention in the Fort Worth Convention Center. Everybody just says it's in Dallas because it's like Dallas, Fort Worth. You just kind of say that, but really you're just like, it's Dallas and Fort Worth is right next door. It's not like Houston that has all these different billion suburbs where it's technically a part of it. Fort Worth is kind of its own thing. It's like the big guy and then Dallas, Fort Worth, but mostly just Dallas. But the Fort Worth Convention Center is really, really cool, and we'll jump into that when we actually arrive in Dallas. But we're actually going to start the story even before then. So my friends Don Cosplay and Abel, they are going to be my buddies for this entire convention trip, as Don will be the driver. Abel will be... What did Abel do? I feel like she didn't do a lot on the road other than kind of yap to us. I was the music person, which was kind of fun. I have a wide variety of music tastes, so I felt like I tortured them just enough. But even before then, we actually had to figure out how to make it to Dallas. So driving is one thing, but packing a car whenever you're cosplayers is quite the adventure on its own. So if you've gone on a road trip, if you're going on a family vacation or a vacation with your friends and you're packing for a trip like that, you're normally packing, I don't know, at least one pair of clothes, maybe two, whenever you're leaving, per day. So you have a few change of clothes, whether it's a swimsuit and a couple extra pairs of clothes. And for some reason, guys pack 15 things of underwear. I don't know. I saw a TikTok about this and I related way too much to I keep packing and packing and packing with a bunch of different clothes. I'm like, okay, I have 3 days of clothes and 8 pairs of underwear for some reason. I don't know whether I'm just I'm gonna have really bad bowel problems or something else is gonna go wrong, but for some reason we all pack a lot of underwear. However, this time I didn't have the room to spare for 8 underwear, only 7 underwear, as you will understand very quickly. Well, normally when you're packing, I don't know, if you're packing for a 3-day trip, 3 pairs of clothes, some pajamas, and maybe you actually might pack some snacks, maybe a pillow, maybe a blanket, things that'll make the trip more comfortable. Yes, but let's take this from a perspective of a cosplayer. Whenever you're going to a convention, you're still gonna need those clothes. You might maybe go out afterwards and you might need some pajamas or whatever, but you're still gonna need those clothes. So those clothes plus every day you're cosplaying, which for us was every single day. So that's 3 extra pairs of clothes. That means at that point, you're at minimum doubling the amount of clothing items you're bringing with you to your hotel, to your trip. So double the amount of clothes. You still need to bring food, some blankets and pillows if you can fit it. Then you have wigs, and wigs can be even another thing on top of that. Some of us like to store them literally on the head in these boxes, or if they're not great wigs, sometimes you can actually store them just in a bag, but we don't talk about that. But now you have wigs, double the clothes, food, and probably a couple extra blankets and pillows. But we're a little extra. If you don't know, everything that I do, I put 112% into it. Whether it's anime, cosplay, gaming, a lot into cosplay, because I spend a little bit too much on that extra like percent or two better than the other cosplays that I'm buying. And also I am a prop maker, and therefore that means I'm putting a lot of effort and time to creating a prop. And this is where the struggle came in. So the characters we're cosplaying of the three different, I was gonna say genres, but the shows or pieces of media that we're cosplaying was Uma Musume, Pretty Derby, Uma Musume Pretty Derby, the horse game, Kaiju number 8, and Frieren. Uma Musume is pretty easy. There's no big props, nothing like that. Then we have the other two. Kaiju number 8 is one of my favorite animes in the last like couple years. It is insanely good. It's this kaiju fighting mental, like it's very interesting and very well done. The art is amazing, the animation's amazing. I've read the books, I've seen the series. It's super good. And if you haven't already, you probably should look up some of these characters as I name them off. But about 6 months prior, we were at Anime Matsuri, and Dawn Cosplay had commissioned a giant 6-foot axe. Problem number 1. I had made this axe, and it's pretty heavy, pretty strong, but man, that thing is just huge. It's a literal 6-foot axe that is like this thick probably. And over the course of the last 6 months, we've really managed to figure out how to pack it, how to move it, how to wield it, and it works pretty darn well. I mean, not as an axe. We aren't using it as an axe. It works out that we're able to use it. And so there's that. But there's more issues. Now, Abel had one of my older previous like gun props for her, and that worked out. But then there came my prop, and the main tension point for us packing this entire car. So let's do a recap. We have all the clothes, double the clothes, the snacks, the pillows, blankets, wigs, props, and this prop in particular is quite interesting. So it's Gen Nanami's prop, and he is a captain, platoon leader guy. He's pretty cool. I like him. He's a really sick guy, and I've really wanted to cosplay him. It's just he isn't as recognizable without his main weapon. He has this huge, and it's called literally this, a sword gun. It is a sword gun, and the issue when it came to packing is that the very tip of the sword gun would roughly, and we tried not to actually hit it, but touch the radio of the car. The front of the car, the actual main dash of the car. And the other tip had a piece of paper towel, a scrunchie at the very end and tip. And between the tip, the scrunchie, there was then the wall and the trunk of the car. And if you're kind of doing all this in your head, this was an SUV. Therefore, the actual sword reached from the radio to the trunk of the car, and minus the hood of the car is as long as the car. This thing is 8 feet tall, 2 feet taller than me, and way more 2 feet taller than like anyone else in our group. Therefore, this thing is absolutely massive. And oddly enough, ended up being one of the lighter weapons in our group. We had a staff, we had another axe that was like a medieval looking axe. But man, this thing was like the end all to be all when it came to props. And truly at that point, my hubris had caught up to me. And at that point, I had understood why people make their props collapsible, deconstructible, not 8 feet long. So yes, we are now in this predicament of the literal weapon going from, I don't know, the entire length of the car. Now, we somehow managed to, I mean, if it was like, I don't know, an inch or two longer, which was actually the original plan, the original gun, keep in mind, I downscaled this weapon. The original file is actually, I think, about 8.3, 8.4, which would not have fit. Definitely would not have fit. Or if it would fit, it would have to then lean, we would have to tilt it up and lean it into the window. So if there's maybe like, I don't know, like somebody brake checking us, they're gonna get a lot more than a car hitting them. They're gonna get a literal Final Destination type death as a sword gun rockets through our windshield into their car. So I'm glad I didn't make it 8'4". It was only 8 foot, only 8 foot. So it wasn't that bad. So now we need to wrap and prepare all these weapons and props. We still need to protect these to a certain extent. While I do trust my builds to an extent, I understand that they're still made out of plastic, they're still 3D printed, and there's only so much I can do. Now, I have learned over the course of the past, it's crazy, I think, year and a half since I started making props, where my original Himmel sword is broken into a bunch of bits, but I understand why it's like that. I understand why it looks like that, why it broke, and how I can fix it. And the sword gun is in kind of the same boat, where it's been a literal year and a half of progress and work for that particular prop, and that prop is my best prop. Strongest, best looking, in my humble opinion, and I am pretty darn happy with it. But also, I don't know exactly the restraints and how to properly manage it at that point. I didn't know how to wield it. I didn't know how strong it was. I didn't know what sort of flexibility it had, or if it shouldn't be flexed at all. And that's what we were going to find out at that convention. But leaving Dallas, or leaving Houston, we wrapped it in, it was like, I think it was explained to me, like, you know those like dog mats, but like for a car, so like it covers all of the seat so that your dog doesn't like scratch stuff up. That's basically what it was. We wrapped it, literally buckled it in so it didn't move anything at all, and we left. So from Houston to Dallas is about roughly 4-ish hours, not including stops, I guess. So we stopped at Culver's, we stopped at Buc-ee's, which also, small tangent on Buc-ee's. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this before, but Buc-ee's does have shopping carts. And for the life of me, I don't think I've ever seen somebody use a Buc-ee's shopping cart until I did. I used the Buc-ee's shopping cart. Whenever we arrived at Buc-ee's, we were like, well, why don't we just pick up, I don't know, any sort of groceries or like water we need while we're here. But then it was almost like an equivalent, like a walk of shame, as we went from corner to corner of the Buc-ee's, wheeling around a literal shopping cart. I think there's a certain like barrier, like it's polite that they have shopping carts, but to the rest of the masses and the civilian population, I don't think you're supposed to use the shopping cart. As I think at that point, you should just be going to a grocery store or like a Walgreens or like a CVS, and not Buc-ee's. I'm sure the company itself didn't mind, but the white middle-aged 40-year-old men who were out of shape were looking at me like I just like murdered somebody, because they were like, what are you doing here, boy? Why are you pushing a shopping cart? They didn't come up to me and said that, but you just see it in their eyes that like, why are you using a shopping cart in a Buc-ee's of all places? So yes, Buc-ee's shopping cart, really odd, and the first ever time I felt judged in a Buc-ee's, other than like buying too many brisket sandwiches. I definitely have seen the stares of people when I'm like, you know, I want 3 brisket sandwiches, and like the workers like, okay, sure. So we're leaving Buc-ee's. Everything's still intact. Everything's still good. But as we're arriving in Dallas, we're kind of coming in at a good time. And I think it's a little bit before 7. And I come up with the idea that, hey, I'm looking at stuff. Can we maybe go get some food or do something? And I'm realizing, hey, there's probably an AMC theater, a movie theater here in Fort Worth. Let's go see a movie. And none of us had seen Five Nights at Freddy's yet. We're like, let's go see Five Nights at Freddy's. So we're coming in, and we're getting to our hotel, and it's about, a little bit before 7, and the movie starts at 7:30. So we're like, okay, it's a little close. We're like, we're fine. We'll be able to all move our stuff in to the hotel. Turns out one person needs to stay at the car. So Dawn stays at the car. Me and Abel now had to move all the stuff upstairs, stuff for 3 people, including props and stuff like that. Speaking of props, I'm really the only person who's trusted to carry those massive heavy props, as we didn't know the full whether these things are going to break or not, and I need to be careful and really understand these props. So then I had to carry other props, and Apple mostly had a lot of the clothes and stuff like that. So it takes a minute, and we're now leaving the hotel about like 7:20, and we're like, okay, now we need to drive to Fort Worth. We're already in Fort Worth, but like a little more downtown Fort Worth to then get to the AMC theater. So we park and we drive, and we're basically across the street from the AMC at 7:30. And with a lot of things, I can be a little tardy, a little late too. I don't know. Overwatch practice. I can be a little late too. A 5-year-old's birthday party. I can be a little late too. They're probably not going to remember it. AMC, I don't know. There's a particular like urge of like a coach yelling something at me where I'm like, I can't be late to Five Nights at Freddy's. That's not possible. I don't want to waste the tickets. And so we are basically entering around 7:30, a little after 7:30 at this point, and I'm like, just in time, and the guy's like all like cheery and happy. I'm like, this guy's loving his job. We get the tickets, and we're like, we're good. It's previews. And so we get our food, we get our drinks, and as basically we're sitting down, previews are over, and we're like, we made it. Dawn just drove 4 hours, and now we are sitting down and enjoying our movie. And Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is okay. I don't know. I feel like people are a little too critical on it. I think it changes a lot and is not as good as the first, I guess. But, I mean, it's still a good, cheesy horror flick. It was fun. So, past Five Nights at Freddy's, we're heading back to the hotel. And we still have work to do. I know there's the whole culture of con crunch and don't, like, crunch your time and do a bunch of stuff right before. Yeah, we did a lot of stuff right before. And including that was also getting our friends over from their hotel. So Squicko TV, one of our buddies, our buckaroos, came to Anime Frontier with both of our sisters. And it was so much fun having them there. Night 1, they came to our hotel and we got to hang out. We got to hang out and really get to yap and talk and stuff like that. While I met Squicko in person before plenty of times. I met the sisters in person before. Not everybody had gotten to interact as much. And just getting to kind of just chill out, like kind of like a vacation type thing together was so much fun. And I won't go into crazy detail of everything that happened. But all I'll say is that Pip is like the most serious like horror farmer. I swear, like half the time we would be yapping and joking and talking like that. And I would look out of the corner of my eye, and there's like this like leather chair in the corner of the room, and you can't see my leg right now, but I'm like putting it over my other leg, and Pip's just sitting there like this, and we're like, what are you doing? And she's like, just chilling. And that's exactly what she looks like. She's just chilling. I'm like, stop ore farming the corner of the room. Stop doing that. And truly, Pip and Iggy are just like 2-dimensional variants of who Squicko is, and you can see that in some of the streams and events and stuff like that. But it was a lot of fun hanging out with them that first night as we were gluing together her cosplay, and we'll talk about the cosplays in a minute. But we made it to Dallas, made it safe and sound. All of us are there, and we are ready to go. So day 1, Anime Frontier. So our first cosplays are going to be Uma Musume. I was somehow convinced I can't even say bribed. I think I was just straight up like peer pressured into doing Agnes. I did like a gender bin version, so I didn't do everything about who she is. I just did a guy version of her. And actually, I got a surprising amount of compliments. And Agnes is like this scientist crazy person, and I was like, that's kind of fun. I don't have to smile the entire time. I can just kind of be weird, which is already kind of implied in some scenarios. Our gold ship, which is like one of the most iconic characters in the game, was Squicko. We had Measurer McQueen, who was Iggy, and then we also had our trainer, who was Pip. Abel did Rarity from My Little Pony, as she didn't have her Uma Musume yet, which she will be doing Uma Musume with us in the future. And then Rory had the absolute GOAT herself, Haru, which is one of like the most like beloved characters in the whole series. I want to do a big like deep dive into Uma Musume in the future, whether on this channel or on the main channel, because it's a game with a surprisingly long history, but also with a history of respecting the heck out of the characters they parody. To break it down on the shortest terms possible, the whole game is about these anime horse girls, but they're based off of actual horses. Gold Ship is one of the most like insane horses ever, has lost millions of dollars, but is still probably crowned as one of the best horses to beat and one of the fastest horses. I think Agnes had an injury early in her career. And also keep in mind, some of these are also gender bent. So technically Agnes, I believe, was a guy horse, now anime girl, and then I'm gender bending it back to a guy. So therefore I'm doing the original horse, not the actual horse anime girl. But yeah, Gold Ship, who Suiko cosplayed, is actually like a white stallion horse. So it's like, it's taking also references to how they looked, how the jockeys looked, inspires their looks as well. Their general attitude, how just kind of crazy they are. And it's a really interesting way to represent a very large portion of history when it comes to Japan. And also, I believe there's some American horses in there too, if I remember correctly. But I've seen it just blow up and extend this popularity wave of fun and happiness towards these horses. And it's created a lot of good for the horses that are still around, and donations and for food and shelter and stuff like that. And it's really, really neat. So yeah, I think hearing a lot about that, and also having Suiko like in person be like, hey, you're gonna do Agnes, and like pointing at me like this, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So yes, that was our cosplay group for that day, and there was a big meetup, which was super cool. A ridiculous amount of Uma Musume cosplayers. I mean, there must have been like at least like 100 or 150 or something. It was just so many cosplayers, and it was really cool. I've been a part of other like big group meetups before for like Genshin and Hoyoverse and stuff like that, but seeing a different game that is relatively new. It's not Genshin, that's been around since like 2018. It's a pretty new game, especially in the global release. The global release for this game for America was in November. So, I mean, this being one of the biggest meetups of a very, very large and one of Dallas's biggest conventions is crazy, in my opinion, and just shows how much love and support the game has. Now, the convention itself, if you really don't know about anime conventions and spaces, Frontier is very good for an anime convention, and the Fort Worth Convention Center is a great example of that, where you have plenty of spaces and some iconic spaces for photos and videos. This huge playground and park that is directly connected to the convention center and all the hotels around it. I mean, it is built for a convention like this, where you go inside, you go to the dealer's den, you go to Artist Alley to spend your money and your V-Bucks, as it were, getting stuff that you want, and then you get to go outside and take photos, which is super, super cool. And for somebody who I enjoy both the slower, more relaxed fun of going and looking through Artist Alley and getting to spend money like that, and also the more excited funness of going and taking photos and doing photo shoots and videos and TikToks and stuff like that. And Frontier, in particular the Fort Worth Convention Center, is like perfect for that. And so, yeah, that's basically what we did for the majority of day one. But there also was that the same night? I'm trying to remember. It was. So, to give a bit of a time scale, Thursday night is when we arrived. Friday is when day one is happening. But Friday had a very interesting end to it. Was it Friday? I'm pretty sure it was Friday. Yes. If not, it might have been Saturday night, but I'm like 99% sure it was Friday night. So we wanted to get food, and we didn't know an event was going on, and you'll come to know what that event was and why everything was just a little more popular than you would expect. I don't know, a Friday night being in Fort Worth, Texas. So we drive down, we actually go park in the same parking lot we parked at AMC and walk across from the AMC to go to the Cheesecake Factory. And it's almost become tradition at this point. A lot of these nights after a convention, you go in cosplay. You don't change. You go in cosplay to a well-established food place and go eat in cosplay. I think the spectacle of it is kind of fun. You can get some funny videos and photos and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. It would be a lot more fun if we didn't have to wait an hour. But a lot of stuff happened in that hour. So across the street, I noticed when we drove in, was that there was a Steinway museum, I guess. Steinway museum / Bible piano place. Steinway's a piano maker, and so we went indoors, or we were going to go indoors, and the guy was like locking it up, almost like those movies where you get last minute to the door and the last employee's locking it up as he's turning off the lights. And he was doing that. And we were standing there in these bright, colorful horse outfits, and he's like, okay, yeah, well, I can let you guys in. So we go in, he's like, okay, 2 seconds, I'm gonna make it real fast. And so he's like, I was really interested. And so he thought I was going to play the piano, but then he started playing the piano instead because I was like, I don't play the piano that well. So he started playing the piano and started playing songs. And eventually we had a song request, and he actually didn't know how to play it, but he then had the piano then play the song, because it's one of those like magic pianos that like play on their own with like electronics or whatever. So then the piano started playing a song, and it was kind of one of those weird moments where you kind of take a second to like realize where you're at, where, okay, we're in Dallas. We've driven all the way to Dallas. I'm with a bunch of online friends I didn't know 4 or 5 months ago. I'm standing in a horse uniform, and I am listening to Howl's Moving Castle on electric piano as the guy who let us in is showing off a rock that looks vaguely similar to a piano. And he had the whole story where this lady had come in and asked if he can give him a rock, and he was like, this is normally how murder stories start. But he explained the whole story about the rock, and then he lifted it up and showed how similar it was, because there was a deconstructed piano on the wall, and he was like, look, this rock looks exactly like it, and then showed the piano and showed the rock, and I'm like, that is exactly the same. And that's how that part of the night ended, because we then left. We just walked out and we started exploring Fort Worth. Now, we did kind of know where we were going. We knew there was like a town center nearby, so we started walking over there. And we had some people like yell and be like, oh my gosh, cosplayers or whatever. And we would see actually other cosplayers. There were some cosplayers waiting for food at the Cheesecake Factory too. And so we left. And then we come across the town center of Fort Worth. And we had kind of seen it from far away, but now we've come across it, and there's this massive, like huge, like 7-story tall Christmas tree, and a literal like Christmas village with a big stage with like kids singing on it. There's an entire like avenue of a bunch of like small shops of a bunch of people selling treats and little goodies and stuff like that. And we've somehow come across what we assumed is a Christmas event. Now, this is taking place, I think it was like around December 13th, 14th, 15th, I believe is the weekend. So this is like a couple weeks before Christmas. No, it was 8th, 9th, and 7th. It was like the very beginning of December. And so now we're here dressed in cosplay at a pretty big event. I mean, there is hundreds of people, and like 50% of them are kids. And so we're there, and immediately people are like coming up and like, okay, what are you guys doing here? Can we take a photo? Stuff like that. And actually one of the guys, and this is a weird phenomenon where sometimes people will see us in cosplay or see me in cosplay and come up and be like, it's not in a cosplay like event, and they'll come up and be like, oh my gosh, my kid would love to see this and take a photo. Even if they don't know who I am, like I'm not normally wearing like Mario from Mario Bros. Like they don't know me, but they're still wanting to take a photo just so they can show up for their kid. And I'm sure their kid's gonna be like, I don't know who these horse girls are. What's this? But there's also, this was the first time it's ever happened to me before. People joke about older people not understanding cosplay and just guessing the cosplay and being completely wrong. And you hear the joke of somebody being like, is this a Nintendo? And somebody came up, and Coco didn't hear it, but we had to inform her that a guy was right behind her and asked for a photo and went, can I get a photo? Are you Nintendo? And it was one of the funniest things I think I've ever heard in my life. Like, are you Nintendo is one of the most insane things as you're staring at a 6'3" horse girl. I love Nintendo, man. But yeah, we took a photo with him. And as we're taking photos, we then hear the announcer mention, hey, by the way, that's all of our performances with Santa tonight, but he's going to go back on his sleigh if you want to take photos. And we immediately lock in and be like, we need to go take photos with Santa. We then leave and book it towards Santa's sleigh. And now there is a group of horses that are standing in front of Santa's sleigh. And I'm sure this Santa is staring out and being like, ho, ho, what the heck am I looking at? What is going on here? And so we go up and we take photos. And those photos, I don't know who has those photos. Someone has those photos. And I want to get a hold of them and post them eventually. But man, it was one of the funniest and weirdest experiences as a cosplayer, where I don't remember the last time I've taken a photo with Santa, for one, but let alone I've never taken it in cosplay. I know that for sure. And it was just weird and funny and just awesome. So we take those photos and we get bombarded for the rest of the night, for like the next bit, because we have about an hour to wait for Cheesecake Factory. So we take a lot of photos. I think Dawn got a literal inflatable balloon animal that was like a sword. And yeah, we then left for Cheesecake Factory. Cheesecake Factory was great. I think people dog on that way too much. If you've looked into Cheesecake Factory and actually how they do their stuff, I know their menu is massive. However, it is really good. To get like a burger or something, they have a really good burger, surprisingly, and it slaps. So yeah, I think that was roughly the night. I think we hung out for a little bit after that. But then came day two. I knew day two was gonna be different. This was the day we had a photo shoot planned. We have our giant, massive props. I have an 8-foot sword gun. Dawn has a 6-foot axe. Abel has a gun, a prop gun. It was made by me, so it's a prop gun. And now we're leaving the hotel in these, and the suits are also super nice. We spent hundreds of dollars on these cosplays, and the suits are made out of a pleather material. If somehow you haven't still looked up Kaiju number 8, I'll give you a brief description. It's like a black pleather suit with belts and buckles and metal plates on the arms, the shins, the shoulders, and then some little metal stuff here and there, and also a metal spine piece that goes down the back. And we equipped everything and we got everything ready, and we left. And it could have not gone better realistically with those props. And this is where the tests really came into factor. I had moved around and tried to use the sword gun to an extent when I first made it, but I understood it was going to take at least a day to really settle and fit and be perfect, and I didn't have a day to try it out. And so the day to really try it out was going to be the convention. And I had, even before leaving the convention, I understood how strong this thing was, and how, how Frankenstein made Frankenstein's monster. It felt like that, where at some point you realize you no longer understand what you've made or how strong it is. You just assume it's not gonna break. And that's what happened. It did not break. It's still the strongest thing I've ever created before, and it's scarily strong. It didn't matter what I bumped into, it didn't matter what it hit, it never took a ding of damage, but whatever it touched got hurt bad. Not individual people. It hit a ceiling multiple times. Each time it hit a ceiling, it left a divot in the ceiling, and the tip of that thing was not hurt. It hit another ceiling. That part of the sword was not hurt. It's laid on the ground. It's been sat on. It literally was stepped on by somebody else, and it didn't do anything. And I don't know what that thing's made out of. I know it's made out of plastic and wood, and that's it. But for some reason, it will not break. And it is the most insane thing I've ever built before. It is the biggest, it is the strongest, probably one of the heaviest thing I've ever built before, but it is still nearly indestructible, which is insane to me. It is one of the coolest things I've ever created, and it will be one of the coolest things I will ever build. And it is insane that it's just strong. Wielding it, I think, is also really cool too, because somehow the creator of the show is like smart enough to make the props or make the weapons in the show usable. The axe, for instance, has a bunch of holes in it that look aesthetically cool, but whenever you hold it, you can hold it by these handles or these holes that don't look like handles, but they actually are, and they work perfectly as handles. And the sword gun is the exact same way. There's a bunch of like holes and stuff on it that like don't make sense when you're making it, but when you finish it, like, okay, it works really, really well. So, photos are amazing. I really do enjoy taking photos. I did modeling as a kid, and so I kind of have that gene in me, and I find it a ton of fun. And so we took photos. That was a ton of really cool photo shoot stuff, and I'm planning on posting those in February. And that was super sick. And yeah, we did. We actually ended up a lot of times whenever we have a bigger cosplay that looks and can be a bit more it's just kind of big and like opposing and be like, oh my gosh, this is so sick. You get a lot of photos. Not to brag, but we did get a lot of photos. And at one point or another, you kind of have to post up. It's kind of difficult to be in a cosplay like that, especially with a big prop, and not find a place to kind of chill and stand or sit. And it's smart. It's smart to do that. If you're walking around these giant props, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna get overexhausted, you're not gonna drink water, you're not eating food. It's a bad idea. And so we found a place to post up, and we were waiting for somebody, for a while, and we sat there for a minute, and we accidentally ended up posting up at the very front of the convention center. Therefore, pretty much everybody relatively had to come through and walk through us to get through the convention center. Now, we're not blocking a lane or anything. We're not being obnoxious, but we're right there. And the amount of photos, I mean, I think overall for the day, it was easily the most photos we've ever taken before. It's probably in like the 70 or 80s. We also were a part of a lot of videos. People would come like, hey, I'm making a video for the convention. Can I get like a video of you guys like posing or like making a shot or whatever? And we did a lot of those. We were in some other people's TikTok stuff too. And it was just like really, really, really cool. And I have experienced that before, but I don't know. It felt very different not being at a home convention and doing that. It's not like I'm going to be recognized at home, but it's somewhere else. It's not at the main base. It's out of the main base. And I just had a lot of fun getting to do that. The next day wasn't that eventful. It was a shorter day, as normally the last day is normally a bit of a shorter day. The con closes, we have places to be. I got to hand over some of the stuff I worked for Swicko for her Brigitte cosplay. I finished up my Start cosplay and had that on display. And it was pretty much a not that eventful day overall. I think we had a lot of fun at the convention. The drive back was pretty easy for somebody who didn't drive. And we made it back in one piece. Yeah, I'm sorry that I'm kind of rushing through the last day. I mean, genuinely, there's not a lot that went on. It's just kind of hanging out, being friends, going and buying and picking up stuff. Swicko did buy this, like, you'll see it on our stream, by the way, this, like, weird creature version of Goldship, the horse that she was cosplaying, where it was like it's a mannequin made out of wire and stuffing, and then the fabric on the outside is like a PNG of Goldship, like flattened against it. So it almost looks like it's like melded into this, and it's kind of freaky. I'm not gonna lie. I personally don't like it, and it's double-sided. So if you flip it around, Goldship is staring right back at you. Flip it, it's still staring at you. So other than Swicko picking up a voodoo doll, I think overall a lot of her purchases were good. I'm not a big spender. I think I've maybe spent like maybe 100 or 200 at a convention, but that was like stuff I had pre-planned to buy because I had met the guy before. But other than that, I'm a big like keychain and like pin buyer, and that's what I mostly bought. But yeah, I love the convention. I do want to potentially vlog in the future some of these conventions. More than likely, I might end up having to record something at these conventions and record people yapping and stuff like that. And that might be some of these episodes where we're in a we're in a hotel or something and we're having to yap. That might be some of these episodes. So I hope you look forward to that. But I think that's really everything I want to talk about when it comes to Anime Frontier. I do want to swap over to Stranger Things. Now, if you truly don't want to get spoiled at all, I don't plan on mentioning specific spoilers. But if you don't want anything going into this might be your time to cut it off, because I plan on talking with this throughout the rest of the video, maybe something else. But yes, Stranger Things, man. I think this is one of the most challenging things to end, other than, I don't know, Star Wars, where you have a series that's been going on. It came out in July of 2016. So it coming out January of 2026 means it went on basically for 10 years. We have basically a innovator in the space, as in they brought back the nostalgia and genre of basically going back in time and showing off this different era. I mean, I can't name them off the top of my head, but I remember after 2016 and Stranger Things season 1 and then eventually season 2 came out, so much stuff was like nostalgia baiting, and like so many things went back to the 80s and 90s and early 2000s where you could look back on just everything that's been going on in like in the past and like try to replicate it. And Stranger Things truly, up until maybe the last season, was great at being inspired and not nostalgia baiting, which nostalgia baiting is just using nostalgia for the bait of clicks and watches and not really understanding the media behind it, and really using nostalgia to its benefit while also still being its own thing. You can see the things like Alien or the aspects of The Thing or Close Encounters, like stuff like that, where you can understand, especially E.T. as well, where it feels nostalgic in the way that it's shot and the lines, and also the era that it's in. It's so faithfully done where it just takes you back. It feels like it's correct in its time. You don't feel disjointed when there's a Rolls Royce, like a 2025 Corvette that's driving by or whatever. Like it doesn't, obviously that would never happen, but it never feels like that's supposed to happen. Like it feels like, okay, that's correct. They're driving the right cars. They're doing the right things. They're talking the right text. They're talking about the most popular things. They're using the right music. And truly, Stranger Things pretty much always has been the master of that up through seasons 1 to 3. And like I mentioned earlier, I rewatched every single episode, every single season of Stranger Things before watching the finale of Stranger Things, because I was worried for what was going to happen. Whenever a show balloons to a $480 million budget, the biggest budget for any TV series ever, and it takes 3 years to make, that's concerning. There is such a thing as having less money, less time, can create a product out of innovation and wanting to create something that isn't there. And I can sometimes find it hard. It's almost the equivalent to people who say they don't like playing Minecraft. It's almost like there is too much creative, like it's too much for you to even dial back in to make sense. I mean, $480 million, that's some of the GDPs of like small countries. Like that's actually insane. So how do you envelop $480 million and 3 years of expectation into a season finale that's supposed to end a decade's worth of storytelling? And at that point, the magnitude of expectation is ridiculous. And that's why I needed to double check and triple check that I was going to be okay with actually watching this and being able to enjoy it off the rip. So it didn't make sense to me to not go back and really enjoy the series and understand what I'm getting into before the finale. And that was probably the best thing I could have done, as it made it better. And I think a lot of people didn't do that, which I understand. It was, I think, at least over 24 hours worth of footage. I'm like 99% sure there's I think at least 24 hours or more worth of things to watch. Don't quote me on that, which is insane. You can't binge that beforehand. It's not like a previous season. It's not like you're watching an entire season and then watching the season finale. That's not how this is working. You're not going through it and binging all of Lost before finishing this, because it's in the same vein. Even though, sure, it's only 4 seasons, these episodes are massive. Some of these episodes are the equivalent of full-length movies. The ending in season 4 is 2 hours long. It's the equivalent of going through and watching like multiple seasons of a show, watching the movies that are connected to the show, and watching the finale season and movie to a show. That's insane to me. That is kind of just too much content, and that's a whole other rant and discussion to go into, where these creatives are being, it's not like they have too much control, is that they need to be reeled in to understand why movies are 2 hours long, why series are 30 minutes episodes, why they shouldn't make them as long as possible, why a movie shouldn't be 3 or 4 hours long, because theoretically it's going to pull, it's going to drag, it's going to go on for too long, there's too many things to keep track of. And that compounding issue is basically all of Stranger Things. Whenever the finale was happening, they do look over the past. They look over what's happened to each person, and all of that is culminated so fast in a concerningly fast way, where you can look through each person's story, and sure, there's a lot of things they've gone through, but you can hit the major points. And I'm like, man, if this was condensed into 1 or 2 giant, like 1 or 2 seasons of a big show that was on like a traditional TV show format, I feel like it would be far less ridiculed for what happened with it. I feel like what happened like it was a tragedy or something. And I did truly enjoy the last season. I definitely was far from perfect. It probably ranks as maybe the worst season, but also I don't see it as like a worst season, a part of like, I don't know, like a SpongeBob season, where like a worst season can be a horrible season that's unfunny and not good. This Stranger Things season is just, it's a expectation nightmare of like, you have to wrap up all these stories, you have to make sure people are satisfied with what's going on, and you have to also make people believe that this was the plan all along. And that's where people that I've seen had the most discourse with how Stranger Things wrapped up, is people feel like they're being Vecna'd in the way, where they have like, they're going back in time to add more evidence to like, okay, yeah, no, this was the plan all along. We were planning to have this person do X, Y, and Z, or this villain to show up, or this piece of evidence to always be there. We're just now revealing it. This door is just now here with all of this other evidence. And I understand that the Duffer Brothers cannot go back in time, or realistically, they couldn't have made the original episode knowing, hey, by the way, you're going to be the most watched live action TV show in the history of television, and also have the longest episode of television ever created before on episode 1. The kidnapping of Will Byers is so far, I don't say removed, but so far along in the timeline when it comes to the amount of time that happens in that show, the amount of progression of period between that show, where it feels like it would almost be an impossible task to go back in time and tell them, hey, write an entire 5-season, 30-hour plus long series at minimum and go. Like, that's insane to me. And so I disagree with the decision to kind of like almost retcon stuff and make stuff feel like it was always supposed to be there and that this was always the plan and that X, Y, and Z was supposed to happen. As I don't know, it feels disingenuous to the viewers that, and also like it feels like they're treating the viewers poorly by like thinking that they're just going to take it and be like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess that happened in the past before any of the other stuff happened, even though if this person would have remembered this, which also a lot of it is memory that happens in season 4, which is not a big spoiler, where certain people just lost their memory of a bunch of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, if you had your memory for this, then like half of the series wouldn't have happened. So the whole memory loss, it was all just a dream, mind stuff is where you kind of lose me a bit. But I then have to almost rate it in a different category on its own. It loses the appreciation of being a series that is supposed to be looked upon as if it's perfect. It's not supposed to be a Lord of the Rings. It's not supposed to be the original Star Wars trilogy. It's not supposed to be something like that. It's supposed to be a marvel of size and record-breaking numbers more than anything else, which is kind of disappointing. Because at that point, you can't treat it like it's supposed to be amazing, or you can't treat it like it was some perfect ending or whatever. And you have to rate it on a lower scale, therefore you can kind of enjoy it more. That's kind of how I see it, and how I think some other people have seen how they're going to interpret the rest of how we talk about Stranger Things from here on out. Because it just kind of sucks to know that they kind of messed up the ending. And you can enjoy it. I mean, it's plenty enjoyable. Most content that is released like that, even if it's like Netflix slop of like some random movie or TV show they put a little budget into and went and a murder story or something like that. I don't know. Like Netflix slop, like stuff like that, where it's just out there to consume. It doesn't feel like that. But there's always some enjoyable aspect to something, no matter what. Even a bad movie, a bad TV series is still enjoyable. There's people who go and will watch The Room, which is one of the worst movies ever that's like acted in, and like this is enjoyable to watch. It's not a good movie, but it's enjoyable to watch. And Stranger Things, sadly, I think that last season kind of fits a little bit in that bubble where it's entertaining. It is an entertaining show. I think that's their goal, at least, to be an entertaining show and an entertaining season of a show where like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. That's neat. I think that fight was really cool. The special effects were amazing. Like stuff like that. That's cool. But as a complete product, the manual of Stranger Things D&D, it didn't stick the landing, which is insane to think about, where you have so much time, so much money, so many people. And I think that might have been the problem. I had mentioned that innovation, creation can be a product of restraint and restraints. Shoestring budgets and stuff like that can really forge and create a style and a look for a series. And if I remember correctly, Stranger Things, the original season, didn't have a lot. It didn't have the gargantuan budget it has, the literal biggest budget in the history of TV and television. It didn't have that budget. And you can see it in the best way possible. You can see the way that a lot of these 80s and 90s movies that were budgeted off of these unfounded directors and cinematographers who've become legends in their own time now. That look, that feel is kind of lost. That iconic feel, that's iconic not because of Stranger Things, but it's iconic because of the time that we're in. And that is definitely lost on the last couple seasons of the show. And whether it was their attention or not, whether it was the cinematography, it was the look, it was the talk of the show, I don't know who planned that out, but it doesn't feel necessarily like they felt like intentionally throwing away what they did the past 3 seasons for. But season 4 and 5 do have their own look and feel to them that isn't similar to the first 3 seasons. I understand that they have to grow up. the kids. They have to grow up with their audience. They have to grow up with the look of the show, and you're not gonna have the 4 OG kids still be kids 10 years on. I think that's like cloning or something. I don't know, or like time dilation. That just doesn't happen yet. But you can still like progress the show with the characters, and it was I think at times they had a little bit of a hard time figuring out where these characters wanted to go, and you can kind of see that in the ending of the series, where you're like, okay, here's where everybody's at, here's where they could go. Does this make sense for them? I guess, but how much have they grown up? How much have they learned? Do I still feel like they're better off? And they're not going to be perfect humans. That's not the point of any of these shows or any of these stories. It's not to create the perfect human after you're done. They're still going to have trials and tribulations as they grow up. But I don't know if they felt grown up enough. I don't know if they felt right in their own shoes, in my opinion. Also, another small tangent. I distinctly disagree with being or bullying the kids in their acting. I say kids, I mean, they're like my age. Because it's like, people were like just being mean online for making fun of like the actors. I can't remember their names right now. I feel so bad for not remembering their names, but it doesn't make sense to be mad at them for their acting skills. I think their acting was completely fine. There was no like it wasn't like, okay, that I didn't believe that necessarily. And I think if you're being super cynical by sitting there and being like, you know what, their acting isn't very good. I didn't believe when Elle threw that car at somebody. I'm like, you're blaming the acting of Millie Bobby Brown for not making you believe that she's throwing a car. I think it's the fact that the car is being thrown that you're not believing it, not that she's not using her hand powers as strong as she's not emoting as much as you want to. That's insane to me. That does not make sense to me. I feel like all the cast and all the cast acted completely fine. I guess there could be better stuff. I mean, whenever you're casting somebody for a 10-year role, you're not necessarily judging them on their acting 10 years later, in my opinion. I think a little bit of grace in terms of like, hey, this person was casted when they were like 8 or 9 years old. Let's give them a little bit of grace when it comes to like what they get to do. And I think they did perfectly fine. I think that's everything I want to talk about when it comes to Stranger Things. I mentioned Star Wars, where it's such a hard and iconic piece of media to end. Star Wars itself isn't ending. I mean, they're still doing more stuff, and there's more movies coming out in the near future. But it's kind of in the same vein, where you have so much time and expectation and money, and it's another one of these properties that has so much behind it that's backing it, where it is not too big to fail. It is still big enough to fail. And I would honestly say that it didn't fully see the landing for how I wanted the series to end. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good series. It's a solid like series out of 8, out of 10. It's a solid like 8. It's like 7.5 to 8 for an entire series. But as a season, man, it disappoints, which is a bummer to say the least. I think that's everything for that. I have like a few minutes left. What else I want to talk about? I feel bad. I don't want to stall, and then you guys are like, click off. Oh, well, we're not supposed to talk about. I did really enjoy going back and seeing everything. The story of me watching Stranger Things is quite funny, as I was a very, very early adopter of Stranger Things. Before it went viral, I had started watching it. I watched the first season, and I had gotten through the first episode, and I'm like, oh, that was really good. The first episode is amazing. It's a great pilot. And then I leave out of my room, and I have to walk past the living room. As I walk past the living room, I notice what's on the TV. It's Stranger Things. My parents were watching Stranger Things as well, And I was like, there's no shot. So, and I was like, I think I had told them as it ended, I was like, so did you guys like this and this and this? I was like, oh my gosh, you were watching it too? So then what I did for the entire first season, for whatever reason, if I was so funny of me, is I would go and watch the episode and then come back at the very end to then get the reactions. Because Stranger Things is known for their last minute, like, big shocker at the very end of their episodes. So I'd come in and watch it with them at the very end and get to see their reaction and what's going on. And it was really fun. And I mean, we pretty much watched every season. I watched this one on my own because I don't know if it's like a different experience. I think I will probably rewatch it to just get a different opinion and perspective on it now that it's not so heavy on like I need to finish this because I want to talk about it. But yeah, it's I think it holds a lot of fun memories, a lot of me sitting with my family and watching Stranger Things. And I think that adds to the expectations, it adds to the disappointment, it adds more emotion on top of a series that I have enjoyed and I still do enjoy and I did enjoy. So I'm just excited to see what's next, I think, for the actors, what's next for the crew, what's next for the Duffer Brothers, for sure. As I don't expect there to be a spinoff. Let me rephrase that. I hope there's not a spinoff. There shouldn't be a spinoff. That should be the end. This should be one of the few series, one of the few movies, practically, that should end and be done. And should be an era, a picture in time of what people were watching at that time. It should be the Back to the Future of, you did the three movies, that's it. You can look back on Back to the Future and love it and enjoy it, but you're not looking at the reboot however many years later. And I don't think Stranger Things will get that treatment in the best way possible. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed these stories. I hope you guys enjoyed me talking about Anime Frontier and my experiences with that. Hope you guys enjoyed my critiques and thoughts on the new Stranger Things series and the ending of Stranger Things as a whole, a decade on. Yeah, I do plan on doing some Reddit stuff soon. I'm cooking up some footage for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And I will see you in the near future. I'm going to manually press the stop button, okay? I don't mind.